Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Indiana State Coaches Show. Here live from 7th and Elm, the corner of food and fun in Terre Haute. We have a great show for you here tonight. We're going to be joined by Indiana State track and field head coach Angie Martin. We'll be joined by special teams coordinator Kevin Abrams with one of his key spotlight guys, Jerry Nunez, who you just heard in the highlights over the weekend. Became the all-time scoring leader in Indiana State football history. We'll talk to Jerry later on in the show about that accomplishment. We are now joined by the head coach of Indiana State football, Curt Mallory, to start off the show. Coach, you told your team on Saturday after the game you'd never been part of a bad win. Even though it may not have been as pretty as you and your staff would have liked, it was still the second win of the season. It was the second consecutive win against Eastern Illinois in this rivalry series, which Indiana State's only done that once since 1984. That's a big deal and a big reason to celebrate.
Well, the main objective was to go 2-0 and get 2 wins in a row by over a rival like Eastern Illinois, and then get 2 consecutive wins. And at the end of the day, that's what we were able to do, and we're going to learn from some things we could have done better and get back to work tomorrow in practice.
You know, I don't want to necessarily compare it to last year yet, but when you look at that tail end of the run last year, winning those 5 games in a row, it was your consistent messaging throughout that time is what your team bought into, and that's why they were able to win 5 in a row. It wasn't because, hey, this week we're trying to win all 5. It's this week we're trying to beat Southern, and it was next week trying to beat South Dakota. It just kept moving and kept going. Do you feel this group is starting to get there where last week you said the goal's 2-0? We need to focus on getting this win against Eastern Illinois, and your group did that. Are you taking steps in that right direction?
Oh, there's no question. They're buying into it. The fact that game week is day by day, and have improved. Our practices have been better, our weeks have been better, and our game preparation's been better. And obviously going 2-0, and our focus now is to have an extended game week and get ready for our next opponent.
You know, today, of course, mentioned in the open of the show, we'll talk to Coach Abrams and we'll talk to Jerry about their side of things. But from your side, to see a guy like Jerry be able to accomplish what he's done during his time here under your tutelage and under your leadership, he's been a guy who's kicked every year he has been here. He's never taken a year off. And to now ultimately be the all-time scoring leader, what does that mean? Why is that an important thing to recognize for what Jerry did over the weekend?
Well, it's a tremendous weapon. Jerry does our kicking off, obviously does our field goals, and has been a great weapon. And we know when we need it, we're going to get it from him. And obviously he's had some big kicks, big kicks that have won us games. But when you got a weapon like that, I sleep good at night.
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, some of those big kicks. Of course, Western Illinois to cap off that 5-game win streak last year definitely comes to mind. Defensively, talking to Coach Brad Wilson, he made sure that he reminded his group of what Jonathan Brantley did a year ago. Threw for over 400 yards, was National Player of the Week by many publications. This year, obviously different, able to hold Eastern Illinois to just 6 points in the game. What did you like defensively about your group and how they attacked? Not just Brantley, but even when Harry Woodbury went in, their backup quarterback, in the second half, it seemed like the pressure and everything was still there.
Well, you like the way they flew around. They created turnovers, and we talk about it all the time. Their purpose in life is to get the ball back to the offense, and they were able to do that 4 times. Had a couple times where it was close to getting even more. But they flew around, got the ball back, and they were fun to watch. They were aggressive and got after their quarterback, pressured him, had some tackles for loss, and did some really good things.
What was so much fun, too, was to be able to announce guys' names like Hamid Oideli getting an interception, Clayton Glasgow getting an interception. Of course, Denzel Bonner, too, on the end, which we said a lot about Denzel, but specifically a guy like Meade, who's been through I think he's played almost every position for you since he's been here. He's never said no. There was a time where he wasn't even on the travel roster and going to games. To see finally someone find a home and to find a position that they can make their own, what type of feelings does it bring to you as the head coach when you see somebody like Meade flourish in a new role?
Absolutely. Hamid last year at this time was on the scout team, was on the show team, and did a great job. Gave us a great look, gave great effort, and never lost his confidence. And then we Talked with Coach Wilson after the season, trying to find a home for him. We moved him to the nickelback position and found a home for him. Had a really good spring and really took off and is playing really well for us right now.
I asked you this at your press conference. I'll repeat it too here at the Coaches Show. There are so many guys on the back end of your defense that are really playing football for not the first time, but first time in a while. Mekhi Ware missed all of last year. Michael Thomas was a wide receiver. Khalif Copeland missed a lot of time last year too. Ty Hambright has been in and out. But you've had multiple different guys filling in new roles. Where do you feel that group has progressed throughout the year, despite maybe there being a lot of new on the back end?
Well, like you said, we moved Michael Thomas over from wideout. He was a starting wide receiver for us, and just says a lot to what Coach Hastings done with that wide receiver group, and that we're able to do that and get some of our best players out in the field and add some depth. But we've got some experience. We've got some new guys that are really good football players that we can get on the field. And they've all thrived and done a good job.
One thing I haven't asked you about in the show yet is, of course, on the offensive side, Curtis Wildermann had to step in and fill in for Ryan Boyle. How did you assess how Curtis did? You always tell your guys, every game, every week, every day, you don't know when your opportunity is going to come. And for Curtis, that was over the weekend on Saturday.
He did a great job. I was awfully proud of him, as we all were. He went in there, did a great job managing the game. Of course, he made some mistakes. But you know what? Those are mistakes he's going to learn from. And Coach Young does a great job with Curtis, and Curtis is with Ryan all the time, and they work well together. They encourage one another, they help one another, and when he went in there, he was comfortable, and his confidence just gained. And obviously, as we have this extended game week, he's just going to have more time to work with that first team.
You mentioned, too, that Petey, even though he went out with an ankle, it was more precautionary to get him back. But, again, welcome back Titus Mccoy after it looked like maybe it would be a season ender in week one. Nick Sims got a bigger piece of the pie as well. Chris Childers, too. Just the running back room that I think is continuing to build confidence as the year's going along as well.
And they're getting experience, too. And with experience, they're gaining confidence, and you're seeing that with that group. And it's an unselfish group. They're rooting for each other, and we've seen a lot of guys carrying the ball this year.
We're not really going to touch up a ton on South Dakota tonight. We're going to save that. I know you won't be here live next week, but we'll have a tape conversation and previewing the Coyotes more next week. But all in all, what's been the biggest message for your group as you head into this week? So many people think a bye week and they think, you're going to have a ton of time off. Well, it's not a ton of time off. You guys will be back at Memorial Stadium tomorrow. What's the mentality like for your team this week during this bye?
Well, I think, the number one thing is we get an extra time to work on our next opponent, and that we practice smart, and that we improve, and we get some of the corrections made, that we just don't go out there and just practice to practice. We're gonna get right into South Dakota tomorrow. We'll practice smart. We'll be out there probably about the same amount of time, and then we'll get a lot of work done this week, and then next week we'll just keep going with where we would be on a normal Sunday.
We'll end this segment on this note. I kind of wanted to save it for the last segment with you, but I'll go ahead and unleash it here. You brought up to your team during your team meeting last night, which kind of sparked it for me, and was just looking throughout the league. I know the emphasis is on the here and now, on what you're doing right now, and your team's 2-2. But when you look at the last 8 FCS games and 8 FCS regular season games, your group is 7-1 in those games at your level against FCS teams. And you look throughout the league, there's only 2 other teams in the Valley right now that have that record or are better. And the only team that is better is, shocker, the Bison of North Dakota State, who won their 7th national championship last year out of the last 8 years. Your group has done a lot within that short amount of time frame. I know there's so much emphasis put on the here and now, and your group wants to prove even more as you go throughout the year. But 7-1 in your last 8 FCS games, that's nothing to lose confidence in.
Well, absolutely. I think that was the message that we talked to him about last night was, the most important game's the next one. And it's all about South Dakota. But we do have 8 games left, and we've played 8 prior to that in the FCS, and we are 7-1. And obviously we go into this 8-game stretch. We know how competitive our conference is, but it starts with the number 1 team on this road, and that's South Dakota, and that is the only emphasis right now is that next game.
Coach, we'll wrap the show up with you later on. Appreciate you stopping by here for segment one.
All right, buddy.
Once again, that was head coach Curt Mallory. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Angie Martin of Indiana State Track and Field. You're listening to Indiana State Football and the Indiana State Coaches Show from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. The Indiana State Coaches Show rolls along here live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Food and fun. Coach Mallory's got to get his drink out of here. It's in the way here at Coach Martin. Coach Martin, Angie Martin from Indiana State Track and Field is our guest. Coach Martin, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. I know your group right now is in the middle of cross-country season, but also a lot of workouts going on for your group to get them ready for, I know it's going to be a big indoor season.
Oh, yeah, we have cross. They're working hard. We've had 2 races for them. And then the rest of fall track, we call it fall track, a little bit of conditioning period. We have about 7 weeks to get them in shape, and then we start training for indoor season. So,
we had Kyle on a couple weeks ago to preview the John McNichols invite over the weekend, and I know you, of course, being a proud Indiana State Track and Field alum, all of you beam with so much pride about this program. Even though you oversee it all, I know Kyle may be a little bit more in detail with the cross-country program, but what was the weekend like for you and just knowing so much that goes in to focus on a guy who did so much for all of you and so much for this community?
Well, I think having this meet, means a lot. John helped build that course, and that was his vision. It was pretty amazing. That course is the best it's looked at this time of the year. Even though we've had no rain for like 3 weeks, it was still green enough, and it was crazy. We don't run as many women's 5Ks out on that course, but the top 15 athletes had times that ranked in the top 20 all time in that course. Pretty amazing.
Wow.
So, it was fast.
Yeah, you talk about Laverne Gibson all the time, and we'll get to your group, which you spend a lot of time on the indoor and the outdoor track and field surface. But, the course was such a constructive idea from Coach McNichols and everything he put into it. We're going to have a really good video feature with your husband, Jeff, and we got with Kyle and kind of walked through the course and kind of went through all the things that Coach McNichols had in his vision. But just the pride that is for you when you go out and you recruit these kids, that has to be just such a great asset to have that many programs have tried to mimic, but can't quite replicate.
It's become a good recruiting tool. The Indiana State meet is run on that course. It went, 20 years ago we were out picking rocks to try and make sure that it was a clean enough surface to run on, and now it's the premier course for Indiana kids. We host a bunch of Nike meets for high school kids, and there's kids from Missouri, Michigan, all over the place that come in, and they know what Indiana State's course is. They know what John McNichols is. They call it Cross Country Town USA, and it's a course that has a reputation around the nation now. So his vision went a long way, and it's been nice to have that, to use that as a recruiting tool.
Angie Martin of Indiana State Track and Field, the head coach, joins us here at the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill, the corner of food and fun here in Terre Haute. Let's look at your group. Last year, very young, had a lot of young pieces, really specifically with your men on the track and field side. But it doesn't mean you didn't have success. You had a lot of success a year ago, specifically with Aaron Reese and Cass. How big was it to have those two have such outstanding years last year that you hope maybe some of those younger athletes on your group that maybe weren't necessarily in their positions but could watch how they worked, how they attacked each and every day, and obviously saw the results that they were able to get by the end of their time?
Well, I think it's unique. We run our men's and women's programs together. And Aaron and Cash were great leaders, tremendous athletes. And so them being women, obviously that trickles down into our women's team, but they really helped even some of our freshman guys. Indoors, we had Javon Moore, who was the freshman of the year. Matthew Lewis Banks was conference runner-up indoors and outdoors. And those two interacted with Aaron and Cash just as much as anybody else. So when you have your leaders interacting with both teams, it's pretty helpful, and they know what the expectations are, and they saw what they did, and they want that. So hopefully it'll continue to do that. What
was their biggest lesson from last year that you feel, even though you haven't had an event yet, but you can sense when you're around your group that those younger pieces that were freshmen last year, you could tell they're a little bit wiser as a sophomore, and maybe you're just really anticipating those meets because you really want to see all the work they've been able to put in the off season?
Well, I think a little bit more focus and practice. when they come in as freshmen, especially freshman men, no offense, they are a little squirrely. So getting them to focus on the little things and take care of stuff that they may not realize is important. In high school, when you're a talented kid, you can kind of get by with a little thing, without doing all the little things. So in college, to compete at this level and to make it to the next level, qualify for nationals, qualify for USA champs, you have to take care of the little things. So I think they're learning that, and they're still young, but it's getting better.
As you look towards this year, what are the goals? What are the expectations that you're relaying to your group that you really want to hammer on here in fall track, so when you ultimately get to the indoor season, you can hit it well and have a really good indoor year?
Well, one thing we worked on today, we talked about the guys' team being young, so we have a lot of sophomores now, and we had a pretty good freshman class. Not giving up on yourself in practice, because practice is supposed to be harder than the meets, and so when you get in the meets and you want to give up on yourself if you didn't do it in practice, you got to be fired up to go and be focused and know that you can do it. So if you don't give up on yourself in practice, hopefully that trickles through the season. Our guys were 2 points away from being second place in the conference last year, and they just couldn't get the job done. So we've been talking about that, like, what does this mean to you? What does all this work mean to you? And trying to impress upon them that they were this close to being pretty darn good, and you got to keep focused on that. Women's side, we kind of trickled off. We had some great seniors last year, losing Aaron and Cash and Ayanna Morgan. We had a tremendous senior class. So now it's the women's turn to kind of be young.
Yeah.
But we had a great freshman recruiting class, so kind of excited to see what we're going to do and what happens next, I guess.
Not that you've been a part of this program and have gone through the recruiting phase, but this really has been kind of the first time where you've gone through it just with you, Jeff, your staff, and trying to get everybody within your program that you yourself recruited and kind of had a main say in. Where do you like that part of your program and getting, they may be young and they may still have some learning to go, but you're really excited about where this program is going because of those pieces?
Yeah, I think, when Coach Nichols passed, it was really, really hard. All of us that were, we have 4 coaches that were there with him, and we all kind of went through a funk, and our recruiting really kind of slouched, and you could see that for 2 years. So now we've had 2 classes that are young, new, fresh, kind of what kids that know what our expectations are and want to be really good. So, we're a step closer, I think, this year. Might take us another year, but we're trying to see if we can get it done this year. And it's one step at a time. And recruiting is one of the hardest things I think we do as college coaches, because you have to pick the right kids, the right kids for not just your team, but for your school, and find ones that really want to be good and can do it at a school like Indiana State.
When you look at the next couple of weeks, what is kind of the rest of your fall track season like for your group? And then ultimately, when will be the first time they really have competition here in the fall?
So we do things uniquely. So right now, all of our sprinters, jumpers, and hurdlers are all training together. Our throwers kind of have their own little group because they don't need to run quite as much. And we'd probably kill them if we did. But we've been training hard. We've been doing a bunch of testing, trying to figure out what strengths are, what we need to work on. And we've got about 3 more weeks left, and we break up into our event groups, and then each event coach will take their groups, and it's kind of like we have mini teams within our team. So we'll be focused, and we have a home meet in December, so pretty excited about getting some of our newbies out on the track and testing and see how we compare to last year.
I know the football staff, of course, has been in the new North Gym, where the indoor track and field meets are at. For the fans that are here that have been in, it's a great facility and an awesome opportunity. I haven't had the advantage of seeing a meet yet because they've fallen on a basketball game, but I know your group really enjoys putting those events on, and you've done such a great job at our outdoor venue. It's nice that you can now really show what you can do in an indoor venue.
The indoor meets are different. They're shorter and quicker just because you don't have as much space, and it's a lot easier. When you're pushing hurdles out for 60 meters versus 400 meters, it's a lot less work. But that facility has been huge for us, and being able to host home meets. I've been here for a long time, and we weren't able to ever host an indoor meet. So to invite people in and even have some of our conference rivals come in, it's been really great.
Well, Coach, I know even though it is the fall, I know your time is precious. Thanks for stopping by the show and giving us an update on your team.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Coach Martin. That was Angie Martin. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Kevin Abrams is our guest here on the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm. The Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill, continues. Big thanks to Angie Martin for stopping by and giving us an update on Indiana State track and field. Now it's the reason why we have a packed house. The main reason everybody wanted to come to the Coaches Show tonight, that is because of our special guest from the Indiana State football staff, Kevin Abrams. Coach Smith told you to sit up a little while ago, but I think you're sitting up high enough. How are you, buddy? You wouldn't expect anything else from Mark Smith, would you?
Never.
Has to be a packed house for Kevin Abrams. Coach, your group over the weekend, I know Jerry able to accomplish some really neat things, and he's been able to accomplish a lot of things during your time here. How important is it when you kind of come in with Coach Mallory and you're taking over a program that you have somebody like Jerry who's so experienced, who's been in just about every situation, and has really been able to help out this team in a lot of critical moments?
Well, I think the main way that Jerry's grown is his leadership and really understanding how his actions, his work ethic on a day-to-day basis can affect his teammates around him. I mean, the example that he sets for Travis and Wyatt, who he needs every single day in order to accomplish his individual goals and to be an asset for the team, is an enormous responsibility that he has as a senior.
I asked you what, during fall camp, that is, when we were kind of previewing Jerry and his year and your special teams unit, and you said the reason Jerry is in a position, he's at the doorstep to accomplish these things, is because of the process. It's because of being able to focus on that process. What, for those that maybe don't know, what do you mean by the process, and what does Jerry do so well in his process that has now not just brought him to the doorstep, but to go through the door and now create the doorstep everybody is trying to ultimately reach from his days after?
When you're process-oriented, particularly with what Jerry does on a day-to-day basis, it allows you to focus on the fundamentals that get you the result that you want. And what he's really able to focus on are the keys to his success individually. And with that being said, if you think about the result, you're thinking about things that are out of your control. And he's able to be focused on the process, be calm, cool, and collected. And we always talk about never be too high, never be too low, and somewhere right in the middle.
That's exactly what Jerry has done during his time here at Indiana State. Your group, one of the main catchphrases, or I don't know if catchphrases is the right way to describe it, but conquer the field. That's what you guys break with every meeting that you have, every huddle that you have from special teams. How did Conquer the Field come about? Where did you get it from, and how long have you been using it?
We've been using it ever since we got here, and it really started with understanding how critical field position is to the team's success. And Conquer the Field is something that is an internally based goal. Regardless of who we play, regardless of the situation, it's about us. It's about our process, our work ethic, in order to help the team the best we can.
You mentioned conquering the field. Your group this past weekend were able to accomplish all of your special teams goals that you set off for. How did you come up with those goals, and why those goals are important for your group to accomplish each and every week?
You know, at the start of the year, Coach Mallory talked about consistency, and our special teams goals don't change within the week. They don't change within the year. And so our players understand exactly what they need to do each and every week, each and every year to get better and better and really establish that great field position, and they did that this week, and I'm very proud of them for doing so.
Kevin Abrams is our guest, special teams coordinator for Indiana State football. Sycamores on a bye week, getting ready for South Dakota 2 weeks from now. We'll be on the road in Vermillion, South Dakota, recapping also the win against Eastern Illinois. One thing I also enjoy about being in your special teams meeting rooms is sometimes you do a lot of trivia with the guys, and when you do and you put them head to head, let's just say sometimes you have some interesting photos of the guys that go up, which sort of get some laughs in the room too. How have you designed your meetings to where you make them to the point of course it's informative, you watch a lot of film, you learn from your mistakes, but also you have some fun. You have those trivia sessions with the guys where you kind of bring them up one-on-one, and you make it as competitive as you can to make it fun to know exactly what you guys need to accomplish and reinforce all of those goals that you do each and every week.
Well, in terms of having fun, if you put in the work the right way and you're prepared, you're able to go out on Saturdays and have fun, see that hard work pay off. And so a lot of times we do those trivia sessions in fall camp when they're really grinding throughout the fall camp and they're really putting in a lot of hard work, and they need to see that success after all that hard work pays off. And that's just one way of doing it, and able to put a couple young guys up against each other to see who can really keep their composure in front of the whole team. And again, who can perform on Saturdays.
A big part of your job, too, being the recruiting coordinator since you've been here, has been, so many, whether it's recruiting barbecues, the communicating with Adam Dennison and Craig, and what you guys come up with from a social media strategy with your recruits. As you focus and you go throughout your week and you're preparing for opponents, how much of what you do also during the week is checking up on recruits and handling that aspect of the job that I don't want to say necessarily gets overlooked by everybody, but everyone's so focused on the season, but you also got to be focused on your current season and what's to come down the road.
Well, Coach Mallory says recruiting is like shaving. You got to do it every day. Obviously, I'm not doing a great job of that right now, but nonetheless, it's something that the entire staff does every single day. And it's something that's critical to the growth and development of this program for the long term, not the short term.
I feel so much, too, and I brought this up with Joe when Joe was on the show a couple weeks ago about you guys as coaches, and I think sometimes fans and sometimes media members can put coaches on a pedestal, can put teams on a pedestal, can put players on a pedestal, and you kind of forget that they're people, too, as you go throughout a year. For you guys, Tyler here in the front row, Mark, everybody here from the staff is here tonight. There's no pressure when I ask you this question, but what do you like most about being part of this staff and just the interaction that you guys get? Because I've been around football for a lot of my life, and even though I'm only 26 years old, but this has by far been the most close-knit group that I've been a part of in terms of a coaching staff and program.
When you reflect back on where this staff has grown, and not only grown this program to where it is right now, it starts with everyone, players and coaches, sticking together. But to take that one step further, it's understanding that players have their teammates' backs, and we as coaches have each other's backs. And I think everybody in this room has Coach Mallory's back and understands that we're going to follow his leadership to make sure that this program goes in the right direction.
And for you guys as a staff, there's no joking going on during the week, right? It's all serious. It's all football all the time.
I don't think you'll find a staff in the country that has more fun than we do.
I think that's pretty safe bet for sure. Kevin Abrams, our guest, the Indiana State Special Teams Coordinator. Indiana State coming off a big win against Eastern Illinois over the weekend. So far, through 4 games, 2-2. Out of your unit, what have you liked about what your group has done through 4 weeks?
I think they've corrected their mistakes from the first 2 weeks, and they, with particularly the last 2 weeks, have grown and improved each and every time. But you're seeing some guys really develop that may not show up in the stat sheet much. Derek Webster and Evan Baugh, Joe Will's doing a really nice job, Dom Daphne. But then there are a lot of guys that aren't playing on Saturdays that do a phenomenal job for us. Ethan Hoover, Brett Hyatt, Michael Griffin. All of those guys are doing a phenomenal job week in and week out preparing us as a special teams group and core to play well on Saturday.
I'm sure the Coyotes are probably listening, maybe trying to get an advantage for a couple of weeks, but is there any truth to the rumor that I've heard that Wyatt Harwood may be moving to the offensive side of the ball and taking some snaps at tailback, because I think Coach Marcus Knight was able to get some hands on his high school film, and I've heard at least that Wyatt is spending some time with Marcus maybe a little bit too much recently in his running back room.
Wyatt's going to focus on one snap at a time. That's about it.
One snap, that's it?
That's it.
You're not gonna feed into that at all. You don't
Not one bit.
I will say Coach Mallory heard about that and heard Wyatt's plea to try to get more snaps, and Coach Mallory said, well, I've heard much crazier things. I'll actually give that a thought. So who knows? Maybe I don't want to ruin any plans down the road,
right.
But maybe that will come at some point in time down the road for Wyatt. You never know. The other thing I know you brought up to me kind of in passing, we had obviously a really good segment on with GoSycamores.com, a one-on-one with Dad, which of course we saw Coach Wilson with Logan, Coach Mallory with Sam, Coach Smith with Craig. You told me I should have done with you and Titus. Why is that? Why is that just such a special relationship with you and Titus Mccoy?
I think Titus plays with such energy and passion, and he plays bigger than he is, and I think everybody sees that. I mean, he plays tough, and he works hard, and he's a leader in that respect, and I think he and I really just developed a close relationship through that hard work.
Well, there's still time throughout a football season. Maybe we can get that figured out here down the road.
Absolutely.
Coach Abrams, appreciate you stopping by and spending a segment with us. Always great to talk to you. Once again, that was Kevin Abrams. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Jerry Nunez, the new all-time scoring leader for Indiana State. You're listening to Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm.
7.9 FM.
Big thanks to Kevin Abrams for stopping by. You're listening to the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. It's a big-time show tonight. Got the whole football staff in here. We got Monet Mitch there in the corner. Money Mitch Johnston is here. We got Jake Johnson as well. I mean, you got Haji here, Adam Dennison here. You got everybody. It's a big-time night here from 7th and Elm, corner of food and fun. And speaking of fun, one guy who's had a lot of fun kicking for Indiana State during his time here is Jerry Nunez. And over the weekend, you heard, in case you missed it, which if you did, shame on you, Jerry over the weekend against Eastern Illinois was able to become the all-time scoring leader in Indiana State football history, while also breaking the all-time field goals record. He's got the all-time PAT record, too. Bottom line is, you're going to see Jerry Nunez's name atop the Indiana State record book a lot. Jerry, number one, congratulations on all of those accomplishments. I know you're a guy that really doesn't like the spotlight, but what's it mean to be able to accomplish those things at a place I know you've basically kicked from day one ever since you've been here?
Well, first, thank you. But as far as what it means, just shows the work and keeping the focus on the process, like Coach Abrams always says, and basically showing when you focus on doing the right thing, good things will always come from that.
When you first came in as a freshman, I know you always have confidence in yourself that you can accomplish great things during your time here, but from the get-go, did you feel this was going to be a place that you could come and make an impact right away like you did?
I did. I was told, I'll have the chance to compete for a spot. That first camp I was here for, and I said, well, this is my shot. I'm going to take of all I got, and thankfully it worked out well, and I did.
What's been the most challenging moment of your time here at Indiana State that you can feel now as a senior, that you've basically been through just about everything, that you can feel has really helped you because you went through that challenging time?
I'd say kickoff is something I really was always focusing on and getting better on, especially because I knew when we had Andrew Longford, he was doing our kickoff specialist. So I knew once he'd graduate, that's something where I'd really have to focus on a lot and help our defense, so, continue to have good field position, help with the game.
From that aspect, when you go from just kind of focusing on kicking field goals to now, of course, having your kickoff duties come into your repertoire, how does that change from the process thing and how you approach, how you go throughout a practice?
Well, it goes back to, I'd say, summer training, in the weight room for sure, is working on my leg speed and strength. That's something I talked to Coach McManus about on getting stronger, so I can improve on my kickoffs, getting deeper kicks and higher hang time, and helping our defense get great field position.
I think I probably know your answer to this next question, and I know you want to make even better memories as you go throughout this year. But what's been your most memorable moment in a game that you've had here at your time at Indiana State, and why that moment continues to stick with you?
I would say our game against South Dakota State, going into overtime. It's a game that not many people expected us to really go in and deal with the way we did. We fought, and unfortunately it didn't come out how we wanted, but it just showed how important any little kick, whether it's an extra point, field goal, it can lead to, overtime, and we had it in our hands. Unfortunately, it didn't come out how we wanted, but that is one game that I will always remember and how important my part was for the team.
Jerry Nunez is our guest, the new all-time scoring leader for Indiana State football, place kicker, kickoff man for Indiana State. Sycamores in the middle of a bye week, coming off a win against Eastern Illinois over the weekend, 16-6. You mentioned that South Dakota State game, and that also followed what was maybe one of your most embarrassing games when you think back to last year when Northern Iowa came in and really kind of took it to us here in Terre Haute. To add on to that, why did that South Dakota State game do so much last year? Because you're not the only one that says that. I know Jonas brings up that game a lot, and many guys, they said that was the game where it showed us that we could do it. Why was that? Why did it all of a sudden you guys feel that was the game that it just started to kind of come together a bit, even though it was a loss?
I'd say just the high praise they get within the nation, within FCS, and then also within the Missouri Valley. It just showed, if we can do that with them, we can do that with anyone else, especially in the Missouri Valley Conference. And I think that made us really believe that we're way more confident, more better than anyone else believes.
As somebody who's been through this league every year, what is the challenge like that you guys are about to go through and embark on, and you got this bye, and then ultimately you open up the Valley season with South Dakota. But how good is this league, Jerry? You've been in it every year, obviously, here at Indiana State, and why you guys know every week is important.
With how good Missouri Valley is, any team that does have to play us outside of conference, I believe they do fear playing us just because of our conference itself. And now with conference coming up, it's only to show where we stand now and how well we're going to be able to do for the season. I believe that we will personally do really well.
We've talked so much about on the field. Let's talk off the field a little bit. For those that maybe don't get the chance to get to know Jerry Nunez away from the football field, what do you like to do away? What's your thing when you're not at Memorial Stadium, which this time of year is maybe just an hour and a day with how much time you guys have surrounded by football and around the offices. But what do you enjoy doing away from football?
Usually when I do have the time, I enjoy golfing with some of my fraternity brothers or going fishing in Coach Mal's neighborhood, and sometimes seeing if he's able to come out and cast with me. But other than that, those two are my biggest hobbies I enjoy doing.
You mentioned fishing with Coach Mallory. Who's a better fisherman, you or Coach Mallory?
No, he'd show me some pics of what he's got, but I don't know how accurate they could be.
You never saw them actually caught by him. You just seen the end.
But
yeah,
I believe him.
Lori could have reeled him in and then just hand him off to Curt for the photo.
Right.
Your teammates, you guys have a very special connection. I know every team in America probably feels that way, but just walking through your guys' locker room, walking through the offices, it's just a different vibe, and a different vibe in a really good way. What do you like about your teammates so much, and specifically just this senior class that's been through a lot?
Right. I'd say we're more than just teammates. I see them as siblings, honestly, and we treat each other like that. We're always joking around. We're not afraid of, honestly, even calling each other out when certain things go certain ways, and we make sure we hold each other accountable, and that's a big thing that the senior group has been focusing on. And something we talk with Coach Mel on a lot is like holding the rest of the team accountable too. What is the little things, and I think that just shows the relationship that we all have together and what could really bring us to do other great things.
Brought up with Coach Mallory in segment number 1, and he actually made it a point of emphasis with you guys. When you look over the course of the last 8 games, you have 8 games left this season. Your last 8 games at the FCS level, you've won 7 of them, 7-1. Why is this group confident? Even though you maybe not have the record exactly that you thought you would have at this point, but that doesn't matter because what matters now is what you do from this point on for the rest of the year.
The confidence comes with how focused we are as a team. We know how well we are, and we know what we can do, and we know what we did last season. And as long as we build off those things and continue to improve on anything that offense, defense, special teams has to improve on, we know we will be able to conquer anything that comes towards our way.
You think you have a few more field goals in you this year?
I sure do hope so.
I know you do. There's no hoping. So, Jerry, congratulations, man. Thanks so much for stopping by the show.
Thank you.
Once again, that was Jerry Nunez. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's time to wrap it all up here from 7th and Elm with the head football coach, Curt Mallory. You're listening to Indiana State football and Indiana State athletics, the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm.
IBQ 97.9 FM.
It's been a fun night here from 7th and Elm, corner of food and fun, the Indiana State Coaches Show. Big thanks to Jerry Nunez, Kevin Abrams, Indiana State track and field head coach Angie Martin, for all being guests tonight, as well as my good friend here to my left, here to wrap up the show, head coach Curt Mallory. Well, a couple weeks ago, you kind of talked about Dante Hendricks and said you would take Chuck one-on-one with him. Now, from Jerry's claim that he is a better fisherman than you, or was talking about possibly being a better fisherman, where's that lie, Coach? Who's the better fisherman between you and Jerry?
Well, I think we're both pretty good.
Okay.
No.
There's the cheap way out. Don't give me a direct answer.
Yeah. I always joke with Jerry about, every place kicker I've ever been around is good at everything, and he's one of those guys that is, but in all seriousness, I'm so glad to have him part of the football team and what he does.
I know we talked about the bye week and how there's still work obviously to be done when you guys go out tomorrow, but how do you manage that when you know you do got a little bit of time? I know right now, kind of after a week or a couple of weeks, you guys probably need some rest to be able to rest up and get healed up before you get into this conference slate, because you don't get another bye the rest of the way.
Well, I think that goes along with practicing smart, and going out there to get what we need to get done. And obviously we have some improvement in all three phases we need to keep doing, and we got to get some guys back. And they know that. We know we've got a long way to go. We got a long stretch ahead of us. That we're smart this week in the way we practice, but we still prepare for our next opponent, because it is going to be a grind these next 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing when I look at this and kind of go back, and actually it does start with that South Dakota State game last year. Miss Donna, who I know you always love stopping by our office and saying hello to, Miss Donna gives me a hard time, and she'll look at me and she'll go, "Luke, why are you already starting to get gray hair? You're too young to have gray hair." And I always tell her, I said, it's because all these close football games that Indiana State football is having. This past weekend, this was the 11th straight game that you and your program have been involved in where it's been at some point in time in the fourth quarter a one-possession game. That's 11 games in a row. At some point in time in the fourth quarter, it's been within one possession. What does that say about your team where in this stretch you brought up, say, hey, look, in your last 8 FCS games, you've gone 7-1, but darn near all of them have just been battles to the very end?
Well, I think it's a testament to our team, and our coaches never panicking. You never see that on the sidelines. They're keeping it together, and they've done a great job. It's kind of people you surround yourself with. We've got great coaches, we've got great young men, and whether game it's been in, there was never a doubt that we weren't going to pull it off at the end.
11 straight? Is it hard to believe that it's been 11 straight games when you think about it, kind of all in all? And you've won all those games differently. Youngstown State was a 23-17 game. You ultimately got a big offensive push there towards late, which kind of made that game not seem as close. But what can that do for your team, though, when you get towards the end and you need to make a play? It's not like your team isn't used to being in that situation, because it's quite evident they have.
Well, I think they've bought into the phases of a game that you have to do well in, and we always talk about how you play in 2 minutes, last 2 minutes of the half and the last 2 minutes of game, and really to watch our offense execute that every day in practice. They know what to do. They know how to do it, and you see it so often when you watch television. That's why we practice it every day. But we practice that every day, and we hit red zone part of both offensively and defensively, and work our blitz periods, and obviously third down. We've really improved on third down. We were 50%, which is pretty darn good the last 2 weeks on offense, and have gotten off the field on defense, and that's been a big turnaround with our offense and our defense. And obviously when we have times where we got to finish at the end of the game in 2 minutes, it's something we work on every day.
I know next week we'll preview the Coyotes more in our tape conversation with you, because you won't be here live with us, but to kind of just put a little bit of a preview, South Dakota, of course, last year, very exciting game, a triple overtime game that we were very fortunate enough to come on the good side of. 2 years ago, going to the Dakota Dome was a tough one. They had a really good team. Chris Strevler, who honestly probably should have been the Walter Payton Award winner that year, had himself a really productive day against us. But I know this is an important game for you guys to kind of go back and, again, show the improvement you've made since that point.
Absolutely. Obviously an awfully good football program. And last year it was a very competitive game, and very well could have gone either way. But a good football team. We got a heck of a challenge coming up, and comes at a good time before we start, where we can extend this week of game week and get ready for them.
But, that's just life in the Valley, right? I know, and it starts just with one team at a time. I know that's what makes you guys excited, that, each and every week, regardless who you play, it doesn't take much to get your guys up and going, because, everybody in this league is really, really good.
Well, there's no doubt. Every team we play every week is very competitive. It's the best conference in the country, without a doubt. And we got a great opponent here that we're going to their place here in about a week and a half.
Coach, appreciate the time. Appreciate your whole staff coming out tonight, too, and having some fun. And, enjoy the bye week, but enjoy getting back to work tomorrow, and we'll catch up with you on tape next week.
All right, thanks, Luke.
Once again, that was head coach Curt Mallory. Again, a big thank you to Coach Mallory, as well as Coach Abrams, Coach Martin, and Jerry Nunez for joining us here from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Again, no football this weekend. We will join you again next Monday night right here at the corner of Food and Fun with our show getting started at 6:05. Big thank you to Dennis Porter back in our studios on Wabash Avenue, just like he does each and every Saturday throughout the football season, getting us on the air. No Sycamore football on Saturday, but we will be back a week from that point in Vermillion, South Dakota. So until next Monday night, for head coach Curt Mallory, I am Luke Martin saying so long from the corner of Food and Fun.
The